But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's the professional show, and delighted to see I'm joined by Mitch, by George, and by Stu. Good evening, lads.
Hello, everybody.
Steve.
Good to see yous. And Newcastle United remain in fourth place after the results today. Forest beating Leeds 1-0. Chris Wood didn't score, and neither did John Joe Shelby or Jack Colback. It was Brennan Johnson who got the winner. And Spurs have beaten Manchester City again at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 1-0. Harry Kane breaking Greaves' record as well. In a 1-0 win. Spurs were down to 10 men with Christian Romero red carded. Well, two yellow cards. We've got a red card. Sent off in the 87th minute. But that puts Spurs just behind us now on 40. They're on 39 points. We're on 40 points. But we have a game in hand now, and we've got a far superior goal difference. And I'm going to start with that. There's interesting comment in the chat already waiting for us from CHCH. And they said, I won't see the show live, so I'll leave me comment here now. I'm seeing a bit of negativity with recent results. I won't say, look where we were, but what I will say is we are overachieving big time with this squad. Even with the signings, we're coming from years of neglect, and by rights, we shouldn't be fourth. And West Ham shouldn't be fourth bottom. That was another good result. Please start enjoying this ride, FFS. And I don't need to tell anybody what that's an abbreviation for. Let's start with that, Mitch, because social media, again, has been full of armchair critics. Call them what you want. People being absolutely, over the top in that criticism of a 1-1 draw against West Ham yesterday. Yes, we all predicted a win. We got a draw. And I don't think it was a bad point on the balance of play in the game. I think it was a fair result, and we got our just desserts yesterday. I think the bone of contention these moaners seem to have is we've drawn 4 out of the last 5 games, and they seem to think that's some kind of huge disaster. Failing to take into consideration that we've just qualified for our first cup final since 1999, our first League Cup final since 1976, and this team is playing well above where we all expected. So I'm not sure why people are complaining, but does our commenter in the chat there have a good point?
It's the glass half empty, glass half full thing again, isn't it? Where probably, I think it's quite clear, we're probably 3 to 4 year ahead of schedule on what the original timeline everybody was talking about. And so I think we'll have to factor that in. I think with the squad we have, I think we are punching above our weight. There's everybody's said that, but that's why we were also getting a bit pissed off when suddenly Man United were back in the title race and we were still ahead of them. And so why were the commentators saying that about Man United but not about us? So we're quite comfortable to sit with that, but now we're getting a bit edgy. I think we probably talked about this for the last 3 weeks, both on here and on Amigos, asking, were we actually in the troublesome part of our season, the time when the results didn't go necessarily so well? And I think we are. And if we're still picking points up, and I think with the way the results have gone today, how do we look at this? Do we look at this as 1 point gained on Arsenal and Man City? Or do we look at it as 2 points dropped in terms of Man United, Tottenham, and everybody else? That's not a bad conversation to be having, is it? Really? And I think we can... Yesterday, after that ridiculous start, there's a good chance we could have been out of sight by 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, what seems to be misfiring is we're not taking all the chances in front of goal that we should. I think Eric Kev, who does a lot of the stats stuff on Twitter, has just put something out today about, well, what's changed when we've got these draws, and it's when goals from open play, where XG's gone down significantly. Or gone up, sorry, it's got to be smaller, hasn't it? But either way, that's the kind of scoring slump that doesn't last for long with a good team. I think if we'd had Isaac available yesterday to throw something else into the mix, I think we saw enough of Gordon's cameo to say there's something different going to come there. I still think we've got lots of things to be positive about. But equally, I was frustrated yesterday at full time. I did feel like 2 points dropped, and it's the first time I think I can say it's felt like 2 points dropped during this period where we've picked these draws up, for me. But I think, do we try and just look at the other results going on around and say, well, look, we're still there, we're still in the mix, and we're still picking points up. We're not losing. We didn't lose the game. And here we were. It's not that long ago. Again, we've said this on here a few times. We were talking about how do we turn losses into draws, and now we're talking about how do we turn draws into wins. It's a different conversation. But understand the frustration, though, because I was very frustrated yesterday at full time.
Stu, what's your thoughts? I mean, I've got to be honest, I wasn't disappointed. I did expect Newcastle to win before the game. I predicted 2-0, but I didn't come away from that game too disappointed because I thought West Ham played well. I thought it was an intriguing midfield battle. We went into the game without Isaac and obviously Bruno with his 3-match suspension starting. We went into the match with the SM, who is, for me, in his last chance saloon with Newcastle. And once again, he let us down. We had the anticipation of bringing Gordon on. But the key for me yesterday was how we're going to do in that central midfield battle against a player that we've been linked with and chased, Paqueta, and Declan Rice, who on his day is probably one of the best midfielders in the country. And they were up against our 2-star midfielders in Joe Linton and Sean Longstaff, who's just come off the back of scoring 2 goals to take us to Wembley. So for me, that was the intriguing part of the game. And I watched it from that point of view. Was also wondering whether Callum Wilson was finally going to, a lot of talk about Callum Wilson and, would he be rested? Would he miss out? And, when Isaac is eventually over his concussion, will Isaac take his place? Callum Wilson answered that yesterday with a good performance. He got a great goal, should have had a hat-trick. On another day, he would have. But ultimately, for me, I guess that's why I came away from it. Football's an entertainment. I walked out of St. James's Park yesterday thinking, actually, on the balance of play, a draw was a fair result. I'm happy with a point. Keeps the run going. And just like Mitch has said, I thought Anthony Gordon was superb. 15 minutes on the pitch or so much. 15 touches of the ball. We've got a ready-made replacement now for ASM. So for me, that's why I came out positive. What was your feeling sitting watching it in Bahrain?
The most frustrating part of yesterday was the Sky commentators, the way they kept pronouncing Paqueta, Paqueta. And it really was annoying to anyone.
Have you tweeted this?
It was Paqueta. I was like, what? But every time he said it with the game, the key word that Mitch used was frustration. And it's, but there's a word I used a few weeks back called perspective, and if we have an almighty slump, we'll still likely qualify for Europe. It's just a case of which competition within Europe, and I don't think we'd find a Newcastle fan on the planet that wouldn't have taken that at the start of the season, especially with the squad we had, because it's been tinkered. We know it's going to go through 3 or 4 phases. So it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to have perspective. It's okay to do both. You can look at yesterday and think that is 2 points dropped. But as Mitch said, it's 2 points dropped when we would have been delighted with a point against them last season or the season before. So it shows how far we've come that we are disappointed. I think the initial thoughts, people are like, well, that's Bournemouth, that's Palace, that's Leeds, that's now West Ham. All at home, all games that were winnable, all chances, enough chances created to win them all. And had we done that, we would have been 8 points better off. We're not going to win every game. But if we look at the positives, that was only the second goal in the first half that we've conceded this season in the league. Now, that from a team that is renowned for shipping goals and for a manager who can't organise a defence, it's remarkable. So any team who's going to succeed has to have a strong defence. And when we've got that, any team missing Bruno would not struggle, but find it difficult to get the same rhythm because most things go through him, don't they? Isak, we can't really say we've missed him because he's only had fleeting appearances anyway. But it was great to see Callum Wilson get back on the score sheet because I was frustrated on his behalf the few games before that because although he wasn't really making much of an impact, there was nothing getting created from him. And we have to look at the positives. Great finish, but what an incredible ball by Longstaff. The way Sean just looked up and played it, inch perfect. The weight of the ball was perfect. And it was just a great, great goal. And we could have blown them away, and possibly we should have. But then you think, was it a bit of euphoria from midweek? Has that caught up with them, like emotional? Because we are a fit team. That's why I put when I retweeted the show, is it glass half full, glass half empty? Because it was great to get contrasting replies. You know, some not to the point it's the end of the world or whatever, but we're in a position where we're still in the Champions League spot. Tottenham are behind us. We've got a better goal difference. We've got a game in hand. And some team soon is going to get ahead of us. And why not next week away to Bournemouth? And if we go there and win comfortably, then that gets our tails back up again because we won't need much encouragement for the game after because that's Liverpool at home. And then after that, well, Wembley bound, aren't we? So just listen to those last few words that I've just explained there. We've got a realistic chance of beating Liverpool. We're going to Wembley. Imagine that last February. We're saying that. It just wouldn't have happened, would it? So that's how far we've come. Joe Linton, I thought, was outstanding. As another positive, as a negative. Perhaps Miggy's been found out a bit because of his weakness of his right foot. He will always cut back in unless they're chipping the ball over the top for him. And that's something that ASM had been guilty of in the past as well. It was like it becomes too obvious what's happening. So I thought there was a time when they could have swapped flanks and played on the stronger feet and hitting the byline and getting the crosses in. And that would have helped Wilson. It would have helped people like Willock or Longstaff that are bursting into the box. So anyhow, knows what he's doing. We've all got opinions and his is always going to be the right one for Newcastle United. And if we do feel at the end of the season, for sure it will be for the one to try, and everyone who's put on the black and white shirt this season deserves to be remembered fondly, whether they're still there or not come the start of next season.
George, we've heard it all before. In the past when we've had, a decent team, the entertainers. I remember little blips and, people going over the top. We didn't have as much social media then, it has to be said. But, in the bars and social clubs after the match, you'd always hear people saying one thing and another. And we've all got different opinions. And, I came back from the town last night, went to the chip shop and, there was 2 or 3 different opinions in there, and there was 1 or 2 people I wouldn't say getting aerated, but, well, that's your opinion. I heard that on more than one occasion. And, ASM certainly splits the opinion. It's doing the same in the chat again as well. But George, what was your feeling after yesterday's 1-1 draw?
Well, like the lads have said, that enough chances to win the game is an honest appraisal. And yes, I think your praise to Wilson's right. He could easily have had a hat-trick. I mean, that chance he got towards the end when the defender just kicked it off his toe when he was about to lash it. If that had been Callum Wilson of a couple of weeks ago before the World Cup, he'd have lashed it before the defender got there. He just waited that second longer. So, yes, we've got Callum Wilson back, but he still needs to be that bit sharper. And then I couldn't believe my ears, but as the team came off, I heard 1 or 2 boos. And I thought, what the devil? What planet are they on? And then you look at that team, there's at least is 4 or is it 5 players who the previous regime couldn't even put on the team sheet, wouldn't even give a game to. And yet here they are on the team sheet and they're starring week in, week out. And we don't seem to be appreciating any of that. And then I look at it even further and there's at least 2 lads on that team who the previous regime wouldn't even talk to, never mind give a game to, and that's Sean Longstaff. I mean, they were cast into the wilderness, and suddenly we're here in the stars again. And so all of that's the positives for me. The other thing I've got to admit is that for the first time, I've hesitated about Declan Rice. Listen to what the pundits were saying about he does this, he does that. I haven't seen it, I've got to say, but I saw it yesterday. He played out of his skin for his team and was magnificent. And there's the defensive midfielder I would like to see us have if we're going to go for one. He was outstanding. And so you're right. I mean, in fact, the whole back five of West Ham were blocking and diving in and all the rest of it, clearly wanting to do their best for their team. And we're going to have to face that. Teams are going to want to do that against us and do what they can to protect what they've got. But no, I was at the end of the game, yes, a little disappointed we hadn't won, but not to the point where I was thinking, well, that's the end of the season, etc., rubbish like that. I mean, there were still lots of positive things. The lads were still playing well. Longstaff, as you just mentioned about, he's through ball for the goal. He does that all the time. And that's what his manager said the other night when he was talking about him. His first pass is always forward. And that's what he's always trying to do. And we're not, we should praise that because we're used to having people who would pass sideways and backwards before they'd go forwards just to get themselves out of trouble. I would have liked this to have won, but I'm not so disappointed that I think it's at the end of the world or anything silly like that. We just got to quicken it up a little bit as far as I'm concerned and have a shot as soon as we get the chance to have a shot instead of trying to dally on it a little bit. And Midgie, well, yeah, I think he has been found out. But what's happened is the manager's been looking at tapes and looking at ways to stop him. I mean, if he went on like that the rest of the season, they'd be knocking on my door to buy him, never mind anything else. Instead, they're finding ways to stop him, and that means we've got to come back with something else to try and help him forward. But none of that is making me feel like it's the end of the world, the end of the season, anything daft like that. No, we're still playing well and still in there with it. Yes, the other 2 points would have made such a difference after the results this weekend, but hey ho, we've got a chance to come back. As Stu rightly said, next week we'll go to Bournemouth and get 3 points there, and that'll make a whole world of difference. The other thing is that I think's worth mentioning is Nottingham Forest won today, and Chris Wood had a good game. Well done, Chris Wood. He didn't do it for us, but so what? He did what he was bought for. But he did what he needed to do for them today, and so I'm happy about that as well. So no, it's not the end of the world to me, and I'm still happy with what I'm seeing. The only unhappiness, if I've got to be pushed on how unhappy I am about anything, it has to be ESM. Really and truly, I don't want to say he didn't try, but it had that look about it, I'm afraid. It for me, it was the little I could see, but where I could hear in the commentary, it was a bit sad for me that he was where he was and not doing any of the things we know he's good at. And you have to say to yourself, well, is this because the system doesn't fit him? Or is it because he doesn't want the system to fit in with him?
What do you think? What do you think, George? Because Legacy Magpie on Twitter says, thoughts on Maxi? Is it over or will he get there? Seems he's lost so much of himself trying his best to fit into the current system. Kenny Ranson's asking, should Gordon have started? If he had, do you think we would have won? I mean, I don't think there was any chance that Gordon would start. And it's not the way Eddie Howe does things. But I think after yesterday's performance, he'd surely be looking at it because Gordon...
Well, he's got to. I mean, the energy he brought onto that pitch, as you say, a number of touches in that short space of time and the way he went about it, he's a lad that wants to play for us. And that's the contrast with the other fella. I'm not convinced that ASM always wants to play for us. And that's my dilemma with him. When he's good, he's very, very good. And there's a famous story like that. When she was bad, she was very, very bad. But never mind. He just doesn't, he's not cutting it at the moment. And if that's because of the system, well, that's hard lines. But we can't afford to wait around, is what I'm trying to say in a rather long-winded way. We can't afford to wait for him to make his mind up what he wants to do. We're moving too quickly for him, and if that's right, then it's right that we make some money on him.
Stu, it's again, it's Groundhog Day. We're going on about ASM, and I do see it in the chat. I put all the comments on the screen, as you guys know, and there's some people in the chat are very pro ASM. We know our very own Keith Patterson is very pro ASM, but I just, I'll always hark back to what Supermax says, and who are we to doubt a legend like him? When he says ASM gets essentially paid, to create opportunities for other players and to score goals. And how many of those things has he done in recent times? And I know the argument from a lot of ASM fans is he's struggling for fitness. He's having to come back. Yeah, correct. He has had a battle with fitness since he scored that equaliser against Wolves way back at the start of the season. But ultimately, Eddie Howe now says over the last few weeks he's been training well. He's at peak fitness. He hasn't got any excuse.
No, but he wasn't the only one that didn't perform well yesterday. And I say this, it's not fair to single him out, but what I would say, if it was Longstaff that had put in a performance like that, or Willock had put a performance in like that, they would have been blasted. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we have to take into consideration, just to summarise the first question, I think the frustration is we've got a golden opportunity at the moment to get into the Champions League. And when we're drawing games like that, that's where the frustration comes in. When you have someone on the pitch with the talent that St. Maximin's got, then he'll take the brunt of the frustration. He is trying to fit in, but to be fair, he made one challenge in our box. And the way he ran at the player, I thought, oh, guys, this is going to be a penalty. And he won the ball and went away with it. But that was one bright light in a very dark tunnel for his performance yesterday, because a lot of the time he was waiting for the ball to come to him instead of going to meet the ball, and it was getting nicked off his toes. And it's just like, it's hard to explain whether it's the problem with him is in his own head, and that's it. When he decides to turn it on, he can be as good as he wants, and he's had every single press conference Eddie Howe's asked about St. Maximin, and he publicly praises him and backs him every single week. So there's not much more he can do on that front. And when we're talking about golden opportunities, you look at like the Chelsea's and the Liverpool struggling. I know it's a shame. But Liverpool, I think I've got to the bottom of their reasons. It might be because all the asthma the players apparently have is all caught up with them now. Because that's what was happening, wasn't it? They were all claiming to have asthma to get the extra energy it blows into them. And then Chelsea, regarding them, they remind me of school football in the late 80s when I was there. All the best players in the East End played for Wallsend, and all the best players in the West End played for Montague and North Finham. And to the point where it hindered people's progress, because they had like the best players, but they can still only play 11 at the same time. And it stifled some of the lads' careers, because there were some cracking players that never actually made the mark with all the teams are cut off. And that's what's happened with Chelsea. And I would absolutely have our unity over what they have, their lack of cohesion. And because they're struggling, and it'll take them a while to find their feet, but when they do, they've got potentially the best team on the planet, haven't they? If they can all gel at the right time. But we're ahead of them by, 10? Is it 10 points or 11 points? We're ahead of Liverpool, and we've got a very healthy cushion. So if Tottenham do go past us and finish fifth, is that St. Maximin's fault? Well, no, because he hasn't played most of the season. So if we finish fifth, would that not be a very good season? But again, if we want to criticise performances, I thought that was probably Botman's least effective performance. He looked a bit unsure of the ball, and I think with Bruno missing, we realise what a hole he has because he's a big comfort blanket for a lot of the players that surround him. They know he's there out all the time. And when he passes the ball to them, it's always at the right pace, at the right weight. And it did make a big difference to our team yesterday. So St. Maximin didn't perform well, but I thought Miggy didn't, and I thought Joe Willock didn't. And I've praised both of them constantly this season. But it's okay to say that people didn't have a good game. It's how you say it, isn't it? So
Yeah.
regarding ASM, I still don't think he'd be there at the end of, the start of next season. And more people are coming around with that way of thinking. And if I'm wrong, it's because he's had a fantastic finish to the season and then we all win. So that's my thoughts on ASM for yesterday.
Good point, well made.
I think he'll start next week.
Okay, good point, well made. Steve Beckwith says, hi, people watched almost every show since lockdown and not always live, but kept me sane. Brilliant content. Keep up the good work. Thanks very much, Steve. Mitch, what's your take then on ASM? And is Stu right? Is there more than ASM to blame?
Firstly, someone asked what the T-shirt is. It's the Goodfellas one with me and Stu on. Anyway, that's why I put the question out on Twitter last night. When I was sitting, it calmed myself down and I was sat with my own thoughts. I thought I'd put that tweet out to say, well, get what the barometer is amongst the fan base, and it actually quite a lot of replies and quite a lot of good replies. And I think there is a little bit of a shift in people's feelings about him. I felt yesterday was a massive opportunity for him, and it feels like an opportunity missed.
Yeah,
to me. Particularly when you had that cameo from Gordon, who, when he was introduced, it was almost night and day. And I don't want to be saying this. I want to be saying, wasn't ESM fantastic? Didn't he turn the fullback inside out and set the second up, and it was brilliant? But he didn't. However, you've got to praise what he did do. He made 2 or 3 fantastic defensive tackles. Something I never ever thought I would say about him. But my concern is this sort of mix of him trying to fit into the system? Is he having some of that maverick ability coached out of him, or being told to think in a different way? And he's trying to appease people, and therefore will lose a little bit of the edge. It still feels like we're having the same conversations about him 3 years down the line. We're having the same, well, we know the ability's in there, but how do we get the best out of it? What can we do for him? How can we help him? I don't think we should be having those same conversations 3 years down the line. And that, for me, is the frustrating part of the conundrum that is ESN. And I don't think anybody's got the answer. And that there will come a time when somebody somewhere decides, well, we'll cut our losses with this, we'll go in a different direction, which it'd be a real shame. Because yesterday for him, just feels like an opportunity missed. And like Stu, I still believe he'll start against Bournemouth, though. I don't think they'll chuck Gordon straight in. I think that they'll ease him into however they want him to do. Maybe even try him in a couple of roles. Everybody's right about Rice, by the way. Best player on the pitch by a country mile yesterday.
Yeah.
Those words stick in my throat because, like a lot of other people, I haven't been actually that impressed with him. I haven't really seen that from him. But yesterday definitely did. So I think, but with regards to SM, my biggest frustration is we're still having the same conversations about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Rice was probably their best player, and interesting to see people's opinions. We'll come back to the chat in a minute. I just want to say this 100% Marg sent us this for Friday, but didn't manage to get it on the show. He says, "Can you give a shout out to me dad, as it was his 66th birthday and his retirement yesterday? Cheers in advance, guys." And there's a picture of him at St. James's Park. So I hope you enjoyed your birthday, and I hope you enjoy your retirement as well. Enjoy that.
Lucky man.
Yeah,
absolutely. Enjoy.
Halfway through the show, time for the ads. Thanks as always to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Beers brewed on the River Tyne. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays, based in Morpeth, telephone 01670 362 460 and mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls, looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the videos and the technology side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to become a member, you pay a £25 one-off fee, and you can go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and find membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code, and it will take you straight there. If you subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. All you need to do is email john@nufcmatters.com, and he'll post you one out. We also support the food bank on this channel, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. You'll find the match day bucket where you can make a virtual donation. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. First off, we've got an evening with Steve Howie at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Friday the 24th of February. Tickets are available from our website, nufcmatters.com, and they are priced £15, not $50, as you can see on the poster. An evening with Nobby Solano is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April, again at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 and you book now at nufcmatters.com. Supermac and John Gibson will also be at Felon Cricket Club on the 16th of February. To buy tickets for that, contact the venue direct. We've got a whole host of t-shirts available from our website, nufcmatters.com. Gives you plenty of ideas for presents, for birthdays, anniversaries, you name it. Get your Anthony Gordon t-shirts and your Wembley t-shirts today. Okay, plenty comments coming in about tickets, which we covered in depth on Friday. Got to be honest, it's never ending. Jimmy sent us a message saying, I'm not sure if you have any clout with the trust or Amanda or Dad, but I feel the criteria for the final tickets has massively let down long-term season ticket holders like myself. Me and my dad have had our season tickets now for 34 years continuously.
God.
We didn't go to 2 of the previous cup rounds due to work and childcare issues, so we are in category 4. Madness that someone who got a season ticket last year when we got took over, then went to 3 cup games this season, gets priority over myself and my dad. Existing season ticket holders who've had them over 20 plus years should be in category 2 or 3. Please raise this as it needs to be changed. Mitch, lots of angry and upset fans. I bumped into around St James's Park and in various places yesterday. Again, we knew there was never going to be, unity on this particular subject, did we?
It's never an easy one to do, except in my opinion, it is. Season ticket holders, members, everybody else. That's it. That's it. We don't need these various points of difference because the allocations mean we don't have 40,000 season ticket holders. So we don't need those extra points of difference to sort out where 33,000 tickets go. We never did need it. It was overcomplicated. And I have to... My personal thoughts are, the people in the club looked at how other clubs do the allocation and thought, and did a bit of copying of the homework. Because that looked quite good and that looked like a good way to do it. Or has there been influence placed on those allocations with personal agendas in place? And I dearly hope not. I dearly hope not. I'm picking my words very carefully. But I don't understand why it had to be this sort of, if it's a Wednesday and the wind's blowing from the southwest and you own a pair of red socks, then you go into category 2. However, if your middle name's Jeffrey and you've recently bought a copy of The Sun, then you go into category 3. You know, we don't need that. It just should be simple. Because where's the reward to those two guys' loyalty there? We're talking about this on Friday night. There are people who do shift work. There are people whose working lives mean midweek games just they can't do. So does this now mean we're going to get season ticket holders almost forced to buy cup tickets that they're then going to move on out of fear of missing out on a final ticket again in the future? And how does that help people who don't get to the game when we're talking about, well, we want to use the cup games to get everybody in and open it up? What you're doing is you're creating more barriers. And it's because it's just been overcomplicated. The simple way to allocate it should be season ticket holders, members, everybody else, done. Done. That was always the way it should have been done, in my opinion, because it's easy. And it rewards loyalty over long periods of time. And we've already got enough little bits of new division creeping in. People, and I've seen it in the chat today, new fans, latecomers, they're the ones doing this and they're the ones doing that. We're really good at this. We're really good at shooting ourselves in the foot and turning the guns inward on ourselves as a fan base. And it's only going to get more difficult as we get bigger and we get more quote-unquote Johnny-come-lately. Super divisive conversation, super difficult decision. I don't think the club have got much wrong since the new owners come in. I think they've got this one up.
Stu, obviously you don't do the Amigos on a Friday, so this is the first chance I've had to ask you about it. What was your thoughts on it?
2 words: unnecessarily complicated. And every time we've talked about it, when it looked like we were getting to the final, to me it was quite clear. Season tickets, we're even talking about it. I asked Steve Hasty, just to remind memory, is this how it used to be done? And it was, the season tickets. And without, you can't make it personal, but what I want to know is a question, you might know the answer. If, for example, I was living in Newcastle and I was using my season ticket, but for a cup game I decided to go and sit next to you, Steve. Yeah. Does that mean I haven't used my seat, so I don't count as being at that game?
Yeah. Yes, sadly, yes.
Right, so they're encouraging people to go around and bring friends and family, but then you get hammered for it. So, or penalised for it. So what happens next season is every single home game, every single season ticket will take the seat, right? 20 quid, they'll take the seat and they'll be exactly the same, which then stops new people coming in to support the club, which is what the club needs for future growth. And then, let's say we get to the final next year. And how can everyone get a ticket? Because everyone's, they're still going to be people that miss out, all the season ticket holders miss out. It should be quite clear. I mean, again, without making it personal, I've got the guy sitting on my right. That's, it might be left the way you're looking at it, but he's sitting on my right. That has supported Newcastle for 70 plus years. But due to health or looking after his late wife, he hasn't been able to get to away games. But we've all heard the stories that he used to go with Mitch and everything. You know, so George goes to all the home games and has done for decades. And I mean decades, more than half a century. Plus, half a century plus a generation. So someone who comes in and goes to a couple of away games gets priority over someone like George, not just George personally. They've made a mockery of it, and it opens it up to questioning. Has it been a job for the boys? Whether we've made sure that we've fitted into certain categories, we'll tweak this to tweak that, but also the away games get sold out very, very quickly. It's as close to a closed shop as what you'll get. So some people don't have the opportunity, even for the wanting to go, to boost their points. If you've got a season ticket, you've put your money up front at the start of the season. You don't know what fare you're going to get served up. This season, the expectations were a lot higher than they have been for the last 2 decades. But these season ticket holders are the lifeblood and the ones that have kept the club going. And it should have been quite simple season tickets. And if it become too many, then it should have been on length of ownership. And that should be a lot easier to work out than trying to go through how many points someone's got and what games did they go to, what games didn't they go to. And, there's some stories like I could use in my extended family, my brother's married family. They've got a couple of kids. They go to away games on a Saturday when they can. Most away games they go to on a Saturday, but on a Wednesday night, the young lad's got school on Thursday morning. So he can't go on a Wednesday night. So he's missed the cup games if Newcastle are playing on a Monday night or the Wednesday game. But that allows someone else within the group to get a ticket to be able to go to the match. But because he hasn't been to the cup game, he hasn't got as many points as what his dad's got. Or he hasn't got the right allocation. So his dad has to buy a ticket and can't sit with his son, who's then not old enough to buy a ticket. You understand? It's made it, as I said earlier, unnecessarily complicated. The both season tickets, they're in a family of 6. Send the tickets in, and they should all have got one together, because the club can see who the season tickets are for. And that to me, I just thought that was my only gripe. But any other group, this isn't a go at the trust. Had it been done, had it been War Flags, had it been any other fanzine, if there isn't an element of self-serving there, then they haven't done their job right either. Because I'm sure if they give it to me and said, right, how would you do this? I would have made sure me and mine got an option on the ticket. And that's human nature for something like a first cup final in 25 years. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying that's what I would have done. But the right way to do it would have been season ticket holders first. And if there was any left, then there's members on how many cup games you've been to. That would have been just too simple, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Mark Bayer says, my mate ended up in pot 4 because they're sitting next to mates at the cup games, which is what Stu was talking about before. Yeah, George, I mean, you were part of the Amigos on Friday. From our perspective, we did discuss this. I don't want to draw it out too much longer, but yeah, look, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be left unhappy at the end of this process.
Inevitably, but what Stu and Neil have said between them, for me, solves the problem. And I don't particularly want a ticket because of the length of time I've been supporting the club. What I want is a ticket because I'm a season ticket holder. And way back when in the 50s, that's how it was done. In fact, when you bought a season ticket, that was one of the things that encouraged you to do. If you bought a season ticket and there was any special games, you were offered a ticket. You didn't have to beg for a ticket. You were offered a ticket because you were a season ticket holder. And there's right, it should be season ticket holders, members, etc., others afterwards. And that kind of makes it simpler. I mean, I've sat today with Steve and John online trying to solve my own personal problem out with this lot. And it felt like I needed a degree in software engineering just to get into my account, never mind get a ticket. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So no, it's the lads are right. The owners have been brilliant, but this is the one that they've got wrong. And I go back to what I said on Friday night. I read as much as I could read with me magnifier with this in front of my eyes, as well as looking at the screen. Read the announcement about the tickets. When I got to the bottom and I seen that they'd taken advice from the trust, I stopped reading. I just put my magnifying glass down, end off. Why is that opinion more valid than my opinion or any other fans group opinion? It just they've got it wrong. Got to be season ticket holders first, and then other categories afterwards.
Yeah, it's
So-
something we won't dwell on too much longer on this
No,
show. I'm sure there'll be
no.
more people talking about it in the chat, but I think, you know, as a platform, we've probably done that subject to death, and you know, people, good luck in your quest for tickets this
Well,
week.
just to
Obviously
finish
starts
off,
tomorrow.
Steve, for example, you know that I took tickets so I could sit with you and the lads.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, but you're penalised for it. But
Yeah,
like Stu says, next season, you know, season ticket holders will do one thing, and that is they will apply for the tickets, whether they're going or not, if they know that, you know, Newcastle United are going to do this in the future. David Cook says in '74, only about 15,000 season tickets, and that included paddock season tickets, but club only got 25,000 tickets allocated. So yeah, I mean, demand for tickets changes things as well. Andy Davies goes, Gordon's a tonic, isn't he? Very good.
Yes.
Very good, Andy. Sooty's
Oh.
asking, not Sooty, Mitch. Do you think we'll dip into the free transfer market for a midfielder or striker? I think business is done, isn't it? Until the summer window. I don't think Newcastle are looking now.
No.
We don't need. And usually when you see people dip into the free transfer market, they're not necessarily the best stock or crop of players. I'd rather see one of our youngsters promoted
Yeah.
and develop somebody within. If we're that desperate, but we're not.
Yeah, and Elliot Anderson, of course, got a run out yesterday, Mitch. I mean, you know, he looked all right yesterday.
He didn't look out of place.
No, that's probably a better way of putting it.
He didn't look out of place at all. And so I think now we're seeing is that house confidence that he can get something out of him, and bring him to the table and develop him as a young man and develop his game. And I'm all for that. So yeah, I really don't think we need to be worrying about the free transfer market. I think we're done. We've got enough there. I think we're unlucky to have Isaac out. I mean, the concussion protocol for the Premier League, I've actually got a copy of it, and I'm a medical person, and I don't really fully understand it, to be honest with you. It's about as clear as mud, and it's not very, very helpful. And I don't think it's a very good protocol either, by the way, but that's another matter.
Yeah, Stu, business is done in this window, isn't it? I mean, Eddie Howe did say in his press conference, of course, you know, we are already looking, you know, to the future for the next window, and things may change. And of course, things may change depending on which European competition we're in.
Yeah, I think they will. The business is done. And as I said earlier, I'm sure we'll be in Europe. It's just which competition is it? Is it the Conference, Europa League, or the Champions League? Let's hope it's the latter. But regarding Elliot Anderson, I think it was a masterstroke by, again, Eddie Howe, his press conference, mentioning, bigging him up, saying this is his opportunity. He's probably played him, give him less minutes than we would have liked to have seen, but that's maybe with him being a local lad as well. But he's held him back, and yesterday he looked confident when he come on the pitch. Rightly said he wasn't out of place, and he wanted to impress. But when Gordon came on, he was like the wasp let out of a bottle, wasn't he? You know, he was just everywhere. And that was the difference. If you want to look for between him and St. Maximin, for those who are trying to choose, there shouldn't be sides. They're both playing for Newcastle. But the difference in performance yesterday is ASM looked like he wanted to be anywhere but that left side of the front three, where Gordon was delighted to be playing for us on that pitch. So that's the difference I see. There's one thing I want to say before we go to George's. It was one of the last things you commented about on the Amigos on Friday, and that was about Qatar Airways. You know, Mitch was asked the question.
Yeah.
Right, so this is, now again, I'm not saying Qatar Airways will sponsor us. There's Sooty there. I knew you'd went off to get him. I'm not saying Qatar Airways will sponsor us, but how they've done that they're interested to put a small amount of a percentage into a club. It wouldn't it be fantastic? All the twerking that's been done by Tottenham, Man United, and Liverpool, and they say, "Nah, tell you what, no need. We'll just sponsor Newcastle." And that will solidify the relations between Saudi and Qatar, and none of them can complain because they all wanted Qatar to invest in them. So it would be a way of saying that you being us great, and maybe I'm just looking too much into it or being a bit too a bit too nasty in my thoughts, but I would really think that would be fantastic when that happened. And I think it was George that said, and it's someone else that's not PIF owned. So you can't complain. Qatar Airways are a multi-national company, all of they're huge. They're one of the biggest airlines out there, and they're looking to expand. And the best way to expand is by advertising. And what better way than the most watched league in the world to be emblazoned across the shirt of a team that's up and coming, and that will be playing in Europe next season. So there's a lot of things falling in place for that to happen. If it's not them, it'll be someone else, and they can justify a hefty sponsorship, which would be performance related as well, which would give us opportunity to get more money. I just thought I'd add that because it was really interesting on Friday when you talked about.
Yeah, a lot of people keep asking sponsors, you know, any news, any updates, but, you know, it'll just happen overnight and bang, you know, we'll see a new strip sponsor, we'll see a new club sponsor. But yeah, George, you know, just rounding off on the situation, the topic we're talking about, what's your thoughts?
Well, business is done, isn't it? I'd be amazed if we went at the free transfers rather than find another Elliot Anderson, because I gather there's one or two are just on the fringe of the first team. So I keep hearing from other sources that it's not just Elliot Anderson, there are others who are knocking on the door and Howe Lakes. So I'd rather we went that way rather than going to free transfers. And the point that Stu makes is why I made it on Friday night. It would Qatar Airways would be good, or any outside sponsor would be good, because it leaves PIF money for us to do other things with if we need to, and yet that sponsorship coming in. So I think we shouldn't underplay that. That the money would be other people's money rather than PIF's money. And the other thing is that I was pleased to see young Elliot Anderson get on, and Neil's absolutely right. He didn't look out of place. And I suspect we'll start while Bruno's out. We could even see Elliot Anderson coming on earlier in a game if necessary to blood him even more. And Gordon, well, the other thing I've talked about with Keith particularly, and you've heard me talking about this business about youngsters trying too hard, so they make mistakes because they're trying too hard. Anthony Gordon didn't make any mistakes when he came on yesterday. He was just on fire. You know, as you said, as Stu said, he was like a wasp let out of the bottle. He went absolutely for it, full tilt, and didn't make any mistakes. No, I'm looking forward to him getting a full game, if not straight away, not in the not too distant future.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a clamour for him to start, I think, if he carries on those kind of appearances, you know, as a sub. But yeah, it is going to be interesting. Declan Rice or James Maddison was a question. I can't remember who asked it before, Mitch. But you know, after watching his performance yesterday and having seen a lot of Maddison, obviously, and been watching him over the last few years, you know, what would you say would be, you know, the right signing for Newcastle in the summer if they're going to go for a big player in midfield, which of course we know
with the mix of midfielders we've got, Rice, because he's the one that brings something different to the party. And would totally free Bruno up because he wants to be everything in every way. And I think that's distracting from his creativity a little bit. People are talking about Miggy's form dropping off, and I think that's dropped off as Bruno's been distracted with other things. Some of the great things Miggy did were from balls played by Bruno when they were linking up together. Being a greedy so-and-so and looking at how we could go with this, provided we get the balance of sponsors, etc. Right? I quite fancy both, so, you know.
What about you, Stu?
Madison. If you look at the comments and everything that's been said over the last few games, we need some creativity up front to score goals. Rice isn't going to do that, and we've got enough players that can play the holding role. Longstaff's proved he can do it. Bruno's proven he can do it. And probably the best option of the lot to me would be Joelton anyway. You know, the way he's built and he's learning the craft in midfield and went to Chinese challenges and everything else. I think Maddison will bring more to us, and that's the difference between the draws and wins that Mitch mentioned at the start of the show. When you have someone who can pick that lock that we've been crying out for the last few weeks at the top end of the table. But if we're being greedy and having a wish list, you could merge Madison and Rice together and create a Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
You know, because he can do everything. He is a proper box to box, isn't he? So,
Yeah.
and he can create and he can tackle that, and he's got an engine on him. But I think we're maybe a season or two behind from attracting that type of quality with the competition we'll have. But for me, it's still Madison. If
Right.
we get Champions League.
George, what about you?
Madison, just on the basis of what Stu said, the creativity. But after yesterday, Declan Rice went up 100% in my eyes because I did actually see what people have been talking about, because I haven't been able to see it on the telly when I've been watching him. But yesterday, he was the outstanding player on the field yesterday, in my opinion. And that's not easy for a bloke that's a defensive midfielder to shine like that. But he doesn't get the goals. Stu's absolutely right. Where 5, 6, 10 goals from midfield from Madison would have turned our season upside down. We would have been knocking on for first and second, not third and fourth, if we'd had that. And it goes to a history, you know, the bygone days that you and I do, Steve. If you look at the great, everybody goes on it like I do about the great goal scorers like Milburn and Robledo and Len White and all the rest of it. You always find that in the background there was a little midfielder like George Hanna or Dave Hilly or Ernie Taylor who banged 7, 8, 9 or 10 goals as well, and that made the difference. And that's what we need at the moment. We need somebody from midfield that can add 10 goals to what the strikers are getting, and that's at the moment that's Madison.
Yeah, Madison for me. I know Eddie Bates is saying like a few. Why not both? But yeah, I think Madison is still my main choice. Finish up on Paqueta, lads. For me, I wasn't impressed yesterday, and Stu's clearly not impressed with my pronunciation. But
no,
Mitch,
yours is right as the commentators. That
all right, okay. Mitch Paqueta, for me, he didn't knock down any trees yesterday, but he scored the goal. I mean, interestingly enough, I did manage to get back to the bar yesterday in time to see Jamie Redknapp showing the similarity between the goal that we conceded yesterday, where Paqueta was on the near post on the far post, with Trippier. He was bundled off the ball, and then Paqueta got the goal and tucked it in. It was exactly the same as the goal that we conceded at Tottenham on the 23rd of October. Trippier was on the same post. Harry Kane bundled the ball in after outpowering Trippier on the back post. So similarity in the goal, but other than that, I don't know. I don't know what the big fuss was about. Maybe it was because Rice dominated the midfield and he was better than him. I just don't know, but I didn't see what all the fuss was about.
We've had a whole season to watch him play for West Ham, and West Ham are, I think they're slightly lucky to be where they are in the league, but they are where they are.
I agree.
And he hasn't pulled up any trees. And yeah, he got a goal yesterday, and I'm sure he was quite pleased with himself. But I didn't see anything yesterday from him that would have justified spending the amount of money that they wanted from him. And then once West Ham started to drive the price up, even more so.
Mm-hmm. Mark Bayer says, "Gan for Aaron Ramsey, then we can have Gordon and Ramsey cooking up the goods while we tell the rest."
Oh God!
Yeah, Mark. Stu, Paqueta.
What wasn't highlighted on Jamie Redknapp's enthusiastic?
Let's find something to have a pop at Newcastle about.
Yeah, he didn't mention that Paqueta was offside, but that didn't seem to get brought up. There was a freeze frame sure he was offside, but it is what it is. They are there to do the job, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I thought Paqueta yesterday was in fits and starts. But the more I watched him, because obviously we were linked heavily with him, the more I thought he wouldn't fit into the team that Eddie Howe's got, and that's maybe why he didn't take the plunge with him. And then when West Ham did the bid, they just stepped back. Okay, you have him. I think he didn't fit how I wanted to do it, and he looked like he was blowing out his backside after about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you need to be high energy to play in this Newcastle team, and I'm quite sure Eddie Howe and his staff had a vision of this is what we want, and these are the type of players we need. And for all the guile and craft he's got, you can't carry someone in the team that the way we play. You can't carry someone, especially in the middle of the park. So I wouldn't say we dodged the bullet because he's a fantastic player, and it might have just been the fact, as I said, Rice probably had his best game of the season. The West Ham fans I've got as friends, they were saying that's the best they've played this season, and so be it. How many times have we done it? You know, it's the onus is on us to find the solution to the puzzle of when teams come and sit deep with us. It's so not so bad away from home where we can press them and cause them in mistakes, but when we're at home, the onus is on us to get the attacking intent, and that even more gives more credence to me saying Maddison over Rice to play for Newcastle if we had the choice. I don't think Rice would want to come to us anyway. I think he's settled in London, and that's where he'll end up going, to Arsenal or join the Chelsea 5th team or something.
George Paqueta, did we? I personally think we signed the right player in Bruno.
Absolutely. There's no comparison in my mind. And I'd just go back to what we often see, you lads often see on Amigos and other programs. We've got a process in the club, and we need to trust the process. And the process didn't pick him. It didn't pick him after the press was leaking photos of him in Bruno's back garden and playing with a dog and playing with the kids. And the assumption was he was going to sign at any time. And yet not a word from the club about it. He was just left with it on the vine and go to where he could get what he wanted, and it wasn't at Newcastle. As a player, Stu's spot on about him. After half an hour, certainly by half time, he was blown. And when West Ham was in the ascendancy for a little bit of the second half, he wasn't driving it. Not like Bruno would have been driving it if it had been us. Or Joe Linton would have been driving it. I don't think we lost anything there. In fact, I think we probably saved ourselves a bit of money and a bit of heartache, because if he keeps playing like that, I can't see Moyes putting up with him like that, actually, because I don't think he's actually 100% fit. And if he is, then he's got no lungs. He's got no lungs. I didn't think for 1 minute he was driving anything in the second half when they were in the ascendancy. So I no regrets at all about not getting that young man.
Definitely not. Great night, lads. As always, the hour's flown over. If you were interested in true crime, I've done a wonderful podcast today. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long, 9 o'clock tonight. You'll have all seen that surname before, McAfee. Well, of course, it's the antivirus software, the multi-billionaire John McAfee, who, of course, passed away a few years ago. Well, I interviewed his widow, Janice, who is still battling to have his remains returned to her so that she can hold the funeral a couple of years on, and also asked her about the life and times that she spent with him. But it's a fascinating interview. 9 o'clock tonight. Set a reminder and give that one a share. I also did another true crime one, which will be going out in a couple of weeks' time. This one was very, very hard to do. It was with a good friend of mine called Eric, and Eric Sampson was in Medhamsley Detention Centre back in those horrendous days. So that one is a very graphic interview with Eric about what happened to him in there. And it's, something I think a lot of people in the Northeast will be interested in listening to. So 2 true crime podcasts on the way. I'm back tomorrow night with the lads in the Fans Forum. Looking forward to starting another week as a Newcastle United fan in the Champions League position, Stu. Hey!
Cup finalists as well.
Get in there, George. That's your little one now. All right. Great to see you, lads. Take care.
Good night, everybody. Good night. Bye.